moving to two. And then you've had to kind of change your number three starter a little bit. I'm curious to know at this point in the season, the temptation of making changes versus the idea of staying the course in those changes. What do you think about balancing those two?
You have to. I think the one thing you want to do is keep the harmony of the group as close to consistent as possible, because really that's who we are. You don't want to make widespread changes unless they help the group moving forward. But you don't want to ever alarm the kids. And I think if you do make changes, the communication piece is primary first. But along the way, you have to integrate certain kids that have made moves maybe above a certain person, and at the end of it, you're doing it only for the group. If it benefits the group, then you can do it. If it doesn't benefit the group and sets the group back, whether it's putting a person on the field or taking a person off the field, I think it is just how it benefits the group moving forward and how you can better your team.
Does it, when you make those changes or consider those changes, is it all about this makes the most sense in terms of baseball strategy? Like, Rodriguez is the contact hitter, so you're moving him higher in the lineup, or is it more about changing the feel of the team?
Well, I think it's both. It's a baseball situation, but I think also sometimes changing the feel, as you said, for an individual might be the best thing for him. Sometimes putting him in a different spot so he can decompress, or say, and not that Carter asked for this or wanted this, but it's maybe moving a 2 down to a 7. So he sees a different spot and he sees a different part of the lineup, so he can watch 6 hitters prior to him before he steps in the batter's box, may be something that's good for him. So you never know that until you do it. And sometimes when you do it, you don't maybe get the result, or you get the result of what you want, and then you can flash back. But I'm not opposed to doing things like that. But I think going back to your initial point is I don't want to do it just for the sake of doing it. I want to do it if it helps the kid and if it helps our team. If it helps the kid individually, then you're helping the team. And that's the root of it.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Lee.
Yeah, Tim, I want to talk about Jack. Obviously, part of his struggle has just been leaving pitches where they've been hit. But beyond that, what's the root cause of that? Is it just maybe fatigue this part of the year? And the second part of that question, it seemed like a lot of what worked for him, particularly against South Carolina, was that fastball that was going letter high, and they just couldn't catch up to it. It seems like he's operating lower with that. Again, is that a conscious thing? Hey, people are going to get used to seeing it there and make an adjustment, and he got him down, or is it just something that's happened? I'm just curious as to what you see kind of behind the struggles with all that with him.
Well, I think teams are making more of an adjustment to him, Chris, because now there's more weeks in between South Carolina and what's happened forward, just as people are making better adjustments to all the pitchers in the league. So that does happen. I think the other thing, Chris, which is important for Jack, and I've spoken to him about this, is just understanding, he's still a sophomore in nature. Just because his situation is such where he potentially would have an opportunity to leave after his sophomore year, I told him, I said, you're still granted the opportunity to be a sophomore. I mean, that's who you are. Sonny went through this. David Price went through this. David Price's sophomore year was not an easy one, as you remember, because you saw his outings. And I think the thing that's beneficial to him is having to go through this, because as he goes through it, he can start to see that, okay, now I can start to understand the attack on me, and now I've got to make that next progression as a pitcher and flip the script, whether it be fastball, whether it be a changeup, whether it be a cutter, what have you. I think he's identified with Brownie where he has been, and Jack will be able to make those changes that he needs to in order to move forward. But I've got a lot of confidence in him for certain. Sometimes it's keeping things a little bit more simpler and not get derailed by necessarily what you see, because he's proven that he is a pretty good pitcher and he's got good stuff. Now it's more about just kind of believability in what he's doing, and he'll be able to do that.
Robbie.
Hey Tim, the last 3 games, I guess, do you see it as just 3-game bump against a really tough schedule, or is there anything that stokes maybe longer term concerns for you?
No, I don't have long-term concerns. I know we've got a good team. We're still getting better, and we will. And we're getting some guys that are trying to get back into some type of rhythm too. Tate being one of them, Spencer Jones being one of them, and they will continue getting better too. Tough stretch. It's just a tough stretch being on the road. We've had success, but we played 2 very good teams. I mean, the Florida team obviously was good, and last night Louisville was good, and we just didn't have much energy in our barrels. It appeared like to us, but you know what? We'll get back and regroup a little bit and get home. We'll be okay. This has happened before, and it's not the worst thing that can happen. You don't want to lose games. You don't want to come up short. And Florida was frustrating because you felt like you had opportunities, particularly on Sunday, and you gave opportunities away that you felt that you haven't. So that piece was frustrating. And last night a little bit too, because I felt like, as good as Louisville was, they hit 3 balls hard. 2 of them were home runs and 1 was a base hit up the middle. But at the same time, we had 1 inning where we felt like we created our own mess. You walk someone, a balk, 2-base balk. You hesitate on a decision that becomes first and second, no outs. It just became kind of a mess in that 1 inning, and we paid for it. But outside of that, we just didn't get the big hit when we needed one, and we came up short. But yeah, I do feel like, Robbie, we're going to move forward. We'll be fine. And not that Vanderbilt is any different than any other school, but I would say, this is kind of a tough stretch during the time of year it is, just from a standpoint of academics, and not just for Vanderbilt. That's Louisville, that's everyone. But to manage it and get through it, it'll be good to get through it.
Do you think, is Ethan Smith a possibility to pitch this weekend, and what's his status?
He's throwing. It's just a matter of building up his volume and making sure that his arm gets back to normal again. So he'll do that today. And hopefully Smitty will be back with us soon. But I'm just hesitating right now, just based on where he's going to be in his bullpen today and what it looks like tomorrow after his recovery period takes place.
Max Hurst.
Did Ethan get hurt after he came back from COVID, or is it just buildup related to coming back from time off?
No, I think the buildup, Max, would be, I think we'd be past that point. I think he felt some soreness when he did come back. And I think that's the piece of COVID that I knew would hit us at some point during the course of the year, particularly pitchers. A position player potentially can get back into rhythm rather quick. The pitcher buildup, that's an animal unto itself. It's like you lose 14 days. Can you throw? Yeah, you can throw into a mattress in your room, but it's not the same. Obviously, it's not even close to the same. So you come back out, you start moving your arm at a greater distance, and then these things will happen. So we're not alone. I mean, that's happened all over the country, but we're just trying to build him back up again.
Any update on Miles or Sam?
Sam is going to have surgery. We just found that out day before yesterday. So he's out for the year. He's going to have surgery done on his elbow, and Miles is still recovering.
Tommy John for Sam?
Yes.
Thank you.
Lynn. Lynn, I think you're muted. We can't hear you right now, sir. Lynn, when you find that button, just let us know. We're going to jump over to Andy real quick. It should be in the bottom left of your screen. Andy, we'll jump over to you.
Thanks. Hey, Coach. So your last home series versus Mississippi State was really exciting, especially with football team, the crowd getting involved. And then the team had you guys had a tough 4-game stretch. Timing wise, what does it mean to have the next conference series coming up at home instead of on the road?
Yeah, I mean, it's always good to play at home, although our kids have done well on the road too. And we played pretty well at Florida. We just didn't get the outcomes at the end. But I think, especially after going to Gainesville and then Louisville last night, and then getting bumped up too, we left a little bit earlier than we had previously was going to, just because of weather. So yeah, I think taking today and getting some time academically for the kids is much needed. There's a lot of projects that need to be turned in today, and I know it. And they were on the bus studying, going to Louisville and back. So today will be good, and just being at home, yeah, with no travel and just playing on our turf will be certainly satisfying to everyone.
Lynn, back to you.
Yeah, Tim, thanks for hanging on.
Yep.
I'm an example here of how a nation keeps its ravenous eyes focused on Vandy baseball, particularly with respect to this year's draft. And Tim, I know this comes with a territory, and it's largely happy territory for you, that there's this kind of attention, but I'm wondering if it ever gets at all fatiguing to have so much fixation on a couple of people like Jack and Kumar here heading into July, or whether, again, that becomes a tribute as opposed to something that would be more of a distraction.
I don't know if I ever see it as a distraction, Lynn, because I think it presents great opportunities to talk about it, not now, but like in August and September, as we prepare for the year, because you know it's going to happen, and you know certain kids on your team are going to be part of it. So you talk about the components of it and what's going to happen during it. And I think, the conversations, the handling it, immersing yourself in other things, being able to center yourself in other things. We've got some great examples. I thought, and Chris Lee's on the call, but I think he remembers when David Price was going through it. And David was the one kid, at least in my world as a Vanderbilt coach, that was getting a lot of notoriety at the beginning, in the middle, in the end. And I thought he handled it at a 10 level. If you put a grading scale on it, 1 to 10. And the reason he did is he truly believed, and whether this was internally true or not, that he was coming back for his senior year. He signed up for classes. He said, I told you I was going to be there for 4 years. I'm coming for 4 years. And even towards the end, he made me think that this kid really, truly believes this. Now, he couldn't come back just because of the situation. But the reason I tell you that story is because his mind was wrapped up in the experience and the processes of the experience, not what was going to happen from the experience. That is a byproduct of what you do. And if you can separate it, which he did beautifully, and Jack and Kumar are doing too, as well as they possibly can. Jack's a little bit different just because Jack hasn't had the year that Kumar has. So there's a lot of learning that's still taking place for Jack. But Jack also knows that regardless of what the situation is, he has as many years as he wants to at Vanderbilt. And I've told him that too. Regardless of what he does and what happens, it doesn't matter, but he's got this time in front of him. And I just don't want these kids, as they go through this experience, to be robbed of enjoying it. Because I think that's the thing that they'll leave here from is Mike Baxter made a good point. I'm sorry I'm expounding on this, but
please do.
He made a great point. And he said to me, Corb, because I played pro ball for 13 years. 13 years. He goes, I was only at Vanderbilt for 2 because Mike came in as a transfer from Columbia. He said, my talk group right now is with 15 Vanderbilt guys. And he goes, I don't have conversations with any pro guys within a 13-year period. He goes, that's how strong my relationships were within a 2-year period at Vanderbilt. And I just remind the kids of that, because this is really going to be the people in their weddings. It's going to be the people that they lean on moving forward. And I just don't want them to rob themselves of this experience by thinking of what could happen down the road. What could happen is going to happen. And when it does, they'll deal with it then. But I don't want them to deal with it now, because I just feel like this is too strong a time in their life where they can enjoy the relationships they have with one another.
I appreciate that. And again, if you can indulge me here, Tim, you're asked all the time, I know, on the national scale, and you don't want to get into comparisons between two guys as exceptional as Rocker and Leiter, but how do you give that standard coach's insight into distinctions between the two?
I talk more about their personalities, because they're different, as they should be. And I like talking about their personalities. I mean, I think that's the one thing I enjoy as a coach, is talking about them as people rather than baseball talents, because their talents supersede the baseball field. And I mean that genuinely, because I've really enjoyed the traits of Kumar. I've enjoyed watching that kid. I'm going to miss him so much at some point, when he leaves, just because I love the kid. I just love how he competes. I love how he sells out. I love how he loves his teammates and how he treats them, and I'm watching him last night in the dugout, and I just think, this kid's on every pitch. He's so into it. And I just love that about him. And I love Jack's nature. Jack's like an old soul in so many different ways, and how he was raised, and he's so calm, and watching him as a bit, a little big brother to his 3 sisters. I like the uniqueness of both of them. And I probably take I don't know if it's political or not. I just take the road of, I want to talk about them personally. I don't want to talk about them, baseball players. They're good players. There's no doubt about that. And I hope they get to play for a long period of time. But I just enjoy talking about them as people more than anything else, as I do the rest of all the guys. I like that part of it.
Of course, I appreciate that, Tim. Thank you.
Thanks, Len.
Chris Lee.
Tim, 2 quick questions. Tate Colwick, I know he's back in the lineup. A handmade is a thing that can really hurt your power, which he's got plenty of. I think we saw it with Pedro his junior year. Can you just talk to where he is in the process of getting his power back? Is that an expectation we should have for this year? Is that just something that it's down and that you live with? But where is he in terms of how that handmade affects what he can do hitting the ball?
Well, I think your first point is right on. I think when you don't have that power that you left with, you try to overcompensate. And when a hitter overcompensates, they start moving away from the ball, because they start using other resources and start recruiting power, which is their body rather than their hands. The thing that Tate was doing a very good job of I remember when it was like a second week in October to February, is he was really hammering the ball to right center field and right field. He was staying over the ball, and he was really using his hands. And Tate used to be one of those guys that was a little bit of a riser. When the ball was coming in, he'd start moving away from the ball because he got pull happy. And you can start to see that when a kid comes back. They start to use other resources to swing the bat. He's starting to get back to moving the ball the other way with pretty good consistency. That will take a little bit of time, but I think it's going to get there, Chris. I just hope that hourglass doesn't run out. You were in May 5th today. So you hope you play long enough where a kid can exhaust his abilities. And I do think it's coming. How long it's going to take, I don't necessarily know if there's a timetable to it, but I know if he hits a ball the other way, or hits a ball at the middle, or just hits a ball hard, those reactions are going to come back again, because they were pretty much very foundational as the season started.
Second question, it appeared from TV that Florida emptied a swimming pool out near first base on Sunday. And so I'm just wondering, obviously they were having trouble handling Enrique. They weren't doing a good job throwing him out. What were your thoughts on that? And just what's the etiquette on that kind of thing? I guess a home team and a groundskeeper have sway to do a lot of things, but what's the etiquette on how that's handled internally in the league? Is that just kind of anything goes depending on where you play and the judgments of staffs?
Yeah, I think it's what you choose to do because your first baseman has to stand in it too. It was wet. They gave new meaning to the swamp. And that was pretty seeable. You know, Enrique got on base the first 3 at-bats, and he stole second the first 3 at-bats. And he was very dark, his uniform was, after the first 3 at-bats. And, you know, it was just wet. Teams do that. They water the front of the plate sometimes with sinker ball pitchers. They just do it, and it's up to them. Yeah, that was very individualized by the school, and there was reason they did it, and so they did. So we just move on.
Robbie?
I've got a quick follow up on that. I saw that Enrique's jersey kept coming unbuttoned. Is that just, you know, how muddy it was over there? Do you guys have to get something special to make sure, since he's, you know, diving back to first base so often, that he, you know, his jersey's not going to come unbuttoned in the future?
Yeah, it makes you think a little bit about design uniforms, because Coach Wilhelm, the old Clemson coach, was before his time, where the tops at Clemson actually went over the pant itself, and the waistband was the shirt. It wasn't the pant. And the reason he did it is so that the kids could slide head first, and the pants would not be disrupted, nor would the shirt be disrupted. And I thought it was a great idea. I think with a guy like Enrique, he does he's on the ground a lot. They threw over quite a few times, and he was sliding head first too. And so there is, you know, the buttons came undone. That became an issue. But it makes me think, you know, going forward, how to kind of design a better shirt that isn't disrupted by sliding head first, which could be the case here on turf too, because when you slide on turf, it's very aggressive, and it does a job on the shirt. So yeah, he did come unbuttoned quite a few times.
Adam Sparks?
Yeah, Tim, I may have missed it, but you're a Sunday starter. Could that be McElvain, Riley, Schultz? Is that TBA? Any of those guys?
Yeah, it could be any one of those 3 guys right now, and is TBA right now. Yes.
And back to my original questions about changing, making lineup tweaks and all that. Moving a good hitter, Carter, down in the lineup. Is there a time that pops in your mind where you did that, moved a good hitter down in the lineup and down in the order, and it helped him?
Ethan Paul. I thought Ethan Paul in 19, when we moved him down to 6 and 7 at the beginning of the year, we knew he was going to be a good hitter, but then we moved him down there. He got comfortable. Once he got comfortable, then we moved him to 3. And I think that worked out well for us. Enrique to some degree, but I would tell you, Adam, that Enrique wasn't the hitter at the beginning of the season as he's become, but we felt like just sticking him down there was a good way to help him grow. But I think sometimes it takes I'm not going to say pressure. I think it just kind of takes the onus off a hitter sometimes. When they're down there, they can kind of get in some type of rhythm. And then when they're ready for it, and you know when they're ready, you bump them up, and then they'll be ready to go. So, yeah, that's the last one that I remember.
Good deal. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Any more questions for Coach? Great. Coach, thanks for your time today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all. I appreciate
you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.